Hello, travelers. Welcome to the Copper Fox Inn. Come on
Hi.
in. What?
I was saying hello to the travelers.
Oh. Normally, no one else exists until I've finished my opening monologue, and then you all are conjured into being by my imagination. That's what I thought has been going
That
on.
has heavy implications that I'm not real, and I don't know if I like
Yeah, I'm real.
Come on in, take a seat, and join us as we discuss Homebrew for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. My name is Thomas the Human Bard, and I am joined today by...
Mercy the Tiefling Wizard. It's like WandaVision. I can finally move and speak now that he's introduced
free.
me.
Hey, spoiler alerts. The Bean hasn't seen WandaVision.
That's the basic premise of WandaVision.
No, I know, but just so
I
you
can
know.
guess that WandaVision is about a woman who lives in a mannequin store, like Wanda's Megorium's Mannequin Emporium, right?
Yep, that's
Yep.
exactly
And
what it's
mannequins
about, and
come to
nothing
life.
else.
Uh-huh. No,
Okay.
Oh, no, I want to hear the rest of this, Bean. What goes on and what...
Oh,
your
yeah, so
take of
What
WandaVision.
happens?
What happens in the...
It's a woman
Uh-huh.
who lives in
a mannequin store,
A
yeah.
mannequin store, and the mannequin store is, of course, called Wanda's Emporium.
Yeah.
Wanda's magical
Yep.
mannequin
Uh-huh.
emporium.
Yeah, we got that part already. What happens next?
And her name is Bill, and
so
Bill
she's
will
not
go
the titular
every...
Wanda. She's...
No, the store is called Wanda.
I see.
Yeah, because like hundreds of years ago, a man named like Bartholomew Dr. Von Wanda, created.
Yeah.
Doctor is his middle name.
Yeah, Bartholomew Doctor. And of course,
Created the
Bill
mannequin
Bill
store.
falls in love with one of the mannequins, right? And it's
And
a
I'm
classic.
Onog, the half-orc barbarian.
And I'm Bean, and I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry.
And on today's episode, we're back.
Be the intro.
We're back to normal. We're back to regular scheduled programming.
Couldn't you tell how normal that was?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Honestly,
we had
in some
decided
ways,
this
yeah.
episode
Yeah.
Was
we were
going
like,
to
okay,
be
guys.
normal. Okay.
So on today's episode, we will be discussing a post from r/Unearthed Arcana, posted by user JohnBed. And this is a spell for an interesting class that we've barely ever even mentioned on the show, the
haven't done a
Artificer.
Ooh.
The Artificer,
Love me some Artificer.
as a class in 5th edition, originated in some Unearthed Arcana and then was officially published in Eberron, right? Rising something?
Yeah, I think it was
what's the
officially
book
published in Eberron, and then eventually in the Tasha's.
And then in Tasha's Cauldron of Caustic Hideous.
Of Laughing.
It was published again officially, but this time in a book with actual like player stuff in it, so it makes more sense.
So it's not just a setting-specific thing.
Yeah, and it is the first new class added to the game since its inception. Like, since 5th edition came out, this is the first official new class completely added to the game with subclasses and all that kind of stuff. And it is an intelligence caster class. Is it a half caster or a full caster?
It is a half-cast.
Half caster?
Have any of us ever played an Artificer? I've made one, but I didn't get a chance to play them
No,
ever.
I've not played one at all.
I've played with an Artificer.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never personally played one, but yeah, I've played games that have had them with them.
Okay.
Between all of us, we've never played an Artificer. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
We are not the well-rounded group that we thought
I
we
mean,
were.
I've always wanted to play a he's just Iron Man, but it's mythology times.
Yeah, of course. I don't know what you're
I've always
talking
wanted
about.
to do that.
Bean, we are all perfectly qualified to speak on every element of D&D,
Yeah.
like with authority and encyclopedic knowledge, and we could never be wrong or have a wrong opinion. So this spell is called Random Bullshit. Go!
Incidentally, that was also the original title of this podcast.
Okay, very good. I like that. Random Bullshit Go is a first level transmutation spell. It has a casting time of 1 action, a range of 30 feet. It has somatic and material components, the material components being a number of tiny items that have been infused by the magical tinkering class feature. So we'll talk about that in a second with the Artificer.
It's no specific number, though. It's just like
No.
a handful of stuff.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it describes that kind of in the spell. We'll see how it deals with that. The duration...
Okay, but it could just be like a handful of lima beans.
If they've been infused by the magical tinkering class feature.
Okay.
Yes. Duration is instantaneous. The class is Artificer. You throw any number of magically tinkered objects out to a range of 30 feet. After landing, each object pulses out magical energy in a 5-foot radius. Each creature in range of an object must make a dexterity saving throw, taking 1d4 plus 1 on a failed save for each object they are in range of. The damage type of the pulse is determined by the type of magical tinkering each object has. So there are 3 ways that you can tinker with an object with your class feature. So if you do the light tinkering, it is radiant damage. If it is the recorded message or nonverbal sound tinkering, it's thunder damage. And if it is a static visual effect tinkering, it deals psychic damage.
Okay.
Neat.
At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 2nd level or higher, increase the size of the die by 1 for each level above the first. And then it gives the table of d4s to d6s to d8s to d10s to d12s.
That's a funky one.
So wait, increase the size of the die. So like when there is a character death, there are different sizes of the death that it can be.
Boo.
I'm sorry.
See, that joke doesn't... I had just very specifically explained what it means.
No, I know, but I'm in a...
But Bean needs to make jokes.
You know, you did your best.
No, I didn't do my best. I knew that one was bad.
So let's talk about the magical tinkering class feature. So for artificers, their whole bit is that they're like inventors that use magic or like they use objects to create magical effects. So they can like infuse items with magic by using like their instead of a wand or a crystal, they have just like a wrench and they just like tinker with what they're holding and suddenly it can do fireball or whatever it is.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, they as a class can spellcast just like wizards or paladins or something, but it's to be flavored as they are utilizing their technology to simulate casting a spell.
I mean, they're basically like inventor alchemy type.
Yeah,
You know, like...
yeah, definitely. And so their magical tinkering feature says, at first level, you've learned how to invest a spark of magic into mundane objects. To use this ability, you must have thieves' tools or artisan's tools in hand, which like represents your tinkering. When you touch a tiny non-magical object as an action and give it one of the following magical properties of your choice. The object sheds bright light in a 5-foot radius and dim light for additional 5 feet. So that's the light one, which would deal radiant damage in this spell. Whenever tapped by a creature, the object emits a recorded message that can be heard up to 10 feet away. That would be the second one that deals thunder damage. The object continuously emits your choice of an odor or a non-verbal sound, wind, waves, chirping, or the like. The chosen phenomenon is perceivable only up to 10 feet away. Yet again, that would be thunder damage as well. And then a static visual effect appears on one of those objects' surfaces. The effect can be a picture, up to 25 words of text, lines and shapes, or a mixture of these elements as you like. And that would be the one that deals psychic damage in the spell. The chosen property lasts indefinitely. As an action, you can touch the object and end the property early. You can bestow magic on multiple objects, touching one object each time you use this feature, though a single object can only bear one property at a time. The maximum number of objects you can affect with this feature at one time is equal to your intelligence modifier, minimum of one object. If you try to exceed your maximum, the oldest property immediately ends and then the new property applies.
I do like that the artificers get to either make their own like white noise generators and or those like digital picture frames that your grandma has in her house that just swipe through different photos.
Yeah.
Those like weird
Like,
crystal laser
it's like
etching photos
build your own
people have.
grandma.
Yeah, that you can,
It's
that
very
you can get at
nice.
the mall.
Yeah.
Or like, remember those old toys that you had that you could spin and they had lights on them, and if you spun them fast enough, they would like spell things?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
the little like things you buy at like theme parks and stuff.
Yeah. It's like a string of
I
LEDs
mean-
or whatever,
Yeah.
What I like the most about this is that I feel like we said, none of us have actually played an Artificer, really. But I feel
They
like what would happen...
definitely upgrade to throwing grenades at a certain
Oh, they
point.
do
yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
But I feel like you would, as an Artificer player, just start having pockets with junk in them.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're like, I don't know, do I need this ball that lights up anymore, guys? Can I turn this off? But this spell, like, turns those into something useful to just keep around. So you become like a pack rat Artificer who's always got, like, I made this trinket. And they're like, well, we don't really need it anymore. And you're like, no, it'll come in useful. It'll be a
you can
reason.
just
use it
keep
for
it
something.
around. You don't need to worry about it expending or something.
Dude, like anyone who's ever built, like, I mean, I've worked in scene shops and prop shops my whole life, or especially people who like do robotics. You always have like the weird scrap bin, and everyone's like, this is just paper clips and like a hinge.
Yeah.
You should throw this away. And you're like, no, one day I will need it.
Exactly. It's also got very good, like, kind of Macgyver energy of being like,
Yeah.
what do I have? A cube that shows a picture of a cat. I've got this, which when you click it plays cricket noises. Throw them around the corner.
I feel like I would flavor this in my character that I build like a self-destruct, a violent self-destruct function into everything I make.
The Doofenshmirtz method.
Exactly. And everyone is like, why? That's so dangerous and pointless. And I'm like, no, it's not, guys. It's actually really useful. And then finally one day in battle, I just throw everything I have and I scream the code word to make everything self-destruct. And I'm like, I told you.
I told you
I
this would
told you
matter.
this was useful.
It's very
Or
much
like,
the Dr. Doofenshmirtz. He's always got the self-destruct button on the bottom.
Yeah.
And you're like, why would you build it? He's like,
he's
well,
like-
I might, what if I need to blow it up? It's always useful.
you're in battle and the people are coming and you're like, stay back. And you get out just a hex nut and you throw it down the hall and it goes ding, 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 ding. And then suddenly the hex nut starts just being like, and you're like, everyone looks at you and they're just like, come on, for real? And then you look over and the bad guy's ears are bleeding. They just like lay down
You
on the
threw
ground.
your Rickroll wrench over at them and you're like, wait for it. And then they're all just like, ah!
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just doing thunder damage repeatedly.
I liked it as well, the spell, because I feel like a lot of people were frustrated by, like when I heard the reception from the community was people, they do like the Artificer. There's a lot of cool stuff there, but some of the critiques were that at a certain point it feels more just like a wizard that holds a wrench instead of a wand and less like a real inventor that does inventy things. And
Yeah.
this I felt like was a cool way of having a spell that still feels a bit inventy, because you just take all this junk you've been carrying with you and you throw it at them, and because it's all built so shoddily it all explodes. Like,
I think that's an interesting thing, just looking at like D&D design as a whole, where often when Thomas and I at least discuss things that we do or don't like about different classes and different abilities, it's that everything is a spell, including in some classes where you're like, well, I don't want this to feel like I'm casting
Where it
a
actually
spell.
doesn't
Yeah.
make sense that they are casting spells.
Yeah, this feels like it shouldn't be a spell. I should just accomplish it mechanically or ritualistically or something. And I think that with Artificers, you kind of have to ask yourself when you're designing the Artificer class, like, are we making an enchanter in, like, video game language where you like enchant objects with abilities and it is magical, or are you making an inventor, in which case it shouldn't feel like you're casting spells?
but they did kind of mash those two
Yeah,
together.
but they've kind of mashed them together in the Artificer, and I think that something like this is useful because the way that D&D is structured as a game, it's just easier to make things spells
'Cause
a
it
lot of
fits
the
in all
time
the
because there's
systems,
already
yeah.
a system for spell casting, and so
Yeah.
being able to design a spell, but when you do it, you can flavor it as the player and the DM as if it weren't a spell, as if you just build this into your creations.
Yeah.
And I think that is useful. That's like a useful thing to do when homebrewing spells, is to think about, but should this even feel like a spell? Even
Now,
though it is a spell.
Yeah, I absolutely love the flavor of this. Now, it is also interesting to note that because the number of trinkets that you can have is based on your intelligence modifier, and like so as you get more and more powerful, even just the first level version of the spell will get more powerful and do more damage.
Yeah, because it's based on each one you throw. So it's,
Yeah,
if
so
you
you
throw
can
5,
so
there's
at a
5
certain
going
point,
off.
you can throw 5 trinkets, whereas you used to only be able to throw 3. So and then as you crank up the power level of the spell, because you can, so it becomes like, I don't know if exponential is the right word, but it becomes even more and more potent as you level up even higher.
I think that's a really interesting thing as well I had wanted to talk about, where normally you get the effect like with, I don't know, what's the firebolt one that shoots 3 firebolts?
Scorching Ray.
Scorching
where it just,
Ray.
Yeah, it does base damage, but you increase the number of bolts that get fired up as you upcast it.
As you upcast, it increases the number. But this, instead of increasing the number at upcast, it increases like the damage at upcast. But the number is based on your leveling. So in early levels, you're less likely to have a big number of them. And as you level up, you get more and more of them. And it reminded me of the kind of other designs right now in D&D of proficiency bonuses and things going off those that always get higher as you level up. So as you progress, you feel that progression. Because if you just start off with like a character with max intelligence, this will never change. Like it's always going to deal that damage, or there's always going to be that many available to you, I mean. But if you have a character that starts off with a lower intelligence and gets higher and higher as it goes up, you feel like you're gaining because you now have more of them on you and you have more ability to use them more often, as well as the ability to make them deal more damage to keep them useful in the late game.
Yeah, and also the dexterity save the enemies have to make to avoid the damage is higher. So it's just like, as you keep going, it's just more and more potential for damage.
Definitely. Which I like. I like the idea of artificers as mad scientists to which everything has a chance of blowing up. Like there's always that. It's never, you know, it's not the kind of science we're used to of like very like sanitized consumer friendly science. It's like old timey STEAM science where it's like this might work or horribly scar you for the rest of your life. You never know.
Yeah, this is a good spell for flavor. Like it's a good addition to the class of Artificer because it makes you feel
like Batman.
More like an Artificer. It really makes you feel like Spider-Man.
It really makes you feel like Batman, yeah.
Wait,
so I think something that's cool about this is like on a technical level, it like you said, Mercy, one of the reasons that we use spells or that they have characters use magic is because there's a system for that. And on the mechanical level of D&D, random bullshit go does still function in the way that like a spell does.
Yeah.
But it also has, if you will, a mechanical level to it, in that it gives it a mechanical feel and vibe. And
yeah, it feels like mechanics, like literally machine
like
parts.
Gears and stuff. And the thing is that it's not just that it's like, well, we took Scorching Ray, but instead of Scorching Ray, you have little robots. Like, it actually is built into the spell that it has this inventory feel.
And it's built into the functionality of the class as well.
Definitely,
yes, exactly. And I think that this inspiration, like, you can use this, and either you can just take spells that currently exist and reflavor them. Or, if you're like, I want to play an Artificer, but I want to be more of an inventor, creating things for an Artificer with that in mind is really good. And it reminds me of, like, back in the early 2000s when steampunk was, like, starting to sort of kick off as a trend. There was a really, this is a deep dive here, there was this old YouTube video that was a song that just went, just glue some gears on it and call it steampunk. That's the way it... And it's just like, was making fun of what people were doing with calling it steampunk. But the thing is, though, that could apply if you just kind of said
glue some
that
gears
attitude
on
of like,
magic missile and call it Artificer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, and better than that, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
And if you think of the way that people take steampunk items, so like if you go to a booth where someone's selling like, oh, I made a bunch of steampunk props, and they're just really clearly like a phone case with gears hot glued on the back and you can still see the hot glue beads, like that's not good enough. But someone's like, well, I took an existing Nerf gun and I pulled it apart and I added all of these like gauges and wires and I made it so that at its base function it still is like a Nerf gun, but it looks and acts and behaves mechanically like every single piece and part on it. has a purpose. Like there's a little gauge here because you can tell that's where the pressure valve is or whatever.
Sure.
That's like a good example. And I guess because I make props, this is the way that my brain is going. But that attitude is so obviously present in this random bullshit go spell. And you can take that and apply it going forward into designing things for the Artificer class.
Yeah, I like that. Like as a design philosophy where it's like you always can sort of just paint over something, but there's a lot of really cool, creative like play you can have when you get really down into it and make it on like multiple levels. It works with the theme you're going for. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thanks so much for listening, travelers. If you enjoyed this spell, we've got the link in the description. Go to the original post. Give it some love on Reddit on r/unearthed arcana. If you enjoy the Artificer, if you've played an Artificer, comment below. Tell us what that's like. Apparently none of us know it. We're all like so amateur. We're all rookies at D&D now.
The Artificer I made was based on, what is her name? Pura? Yeah, it was based
Breath of the Wild.
on young Pura.
And remember that you can send spells that you've homebrewed, classes, races, magic items to our email, thecopperfoxinn@gmail.com, or on social media @thecopperfoxinn, and we might discuss them on the show. Thank you so much for listening, travelers. Remember to like the video and subscribe for future Dungeons & Dragons Homebrew Discussion content. And until next time, keep on adventuring.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi.